Hey adventurers, so today is going to be my thoughts and review of Wheel of Time Season 2. I didn't go episode by episode reviewing this like I did with Season 1 or like I did with Rings of Power, and I probably won't continuing forward. I'll probably just stick... I asked on the community tab whether people wanted me to review each individual episode or just do a season review at the end of the season, and the responses were primarily a series review. So that's what I'm going to kind of do. I will talk through a few of my thoughts as I go, episode by episode, but it won't be one massive giant video talking about episodes because that's too much. Actually, I don't think I did it. I don't think I did individual reviews for every episode of WOT Season 1, Wheel of Time Season 1. But I in my big wrap-up and review, I went through every note that I'd made of each of the episodes and talked about my thoughts. I'm not probably going to do that again, especially, yeah. But I do have a few things that I'll go through as I come across them. We'll start going through episode by episode, and I'll give a bit of a generic fantasy TV show rating as well as a Wheel of Time adaptation rating, and we'll see how that goes. So that'll be episode by episode as well. But then at the end, I'll kind of just give my overall thoughts on the season as a whole. So to start out with episode 1, I'm glad we got Elias, but I do not like the way that he's introduced, and I really don't like the way that he's used throughout the season. I do like Baal Doman, I believe that's his name, and his introduction. Obviously, it's not like it is in the books, but I think that the actor does a good job of portraying the character that I envisioned when I read the books. There were some stuff, a lot of people have talked about Leandrin this season because she had played a very prominent role, and I do agree that Leandrin was one of the more interesting characters, and there was a lot of stuff that I thought was done really well with her character. There's also a whole lot of little teeny continuity errors maybe, but they're like, I noticed them and I'm like, why? So the one that I specifically wrote down, and I know that I said I wasn't going to go through every detail, but in the first episode when it's Beltane again and they're all placing lanterns, he places one in the water, and then the shot angle changes and there's 2 in the water and there's nobody else around. Why there's 2 lanterns in the water now, I have no idea. But there's things like that that just don't make sense. They're continuity errors at the least. Possibly more than that. That just doesn't make sense. One of the big things I really disliked about this whole season was not having the Hunt for the Horn. That was a big one. But the other one is there's the battle between Lan and Moraine and the Fades. And I do not like that battle. Basically, the Fades are severely underpowered from what they're supposed to be, which I understand you've got to adapt things to a different medium, and sometimes a monster can't be as scary and as fast and as powerful as it is in the books. I understand there's some changes that have to be made, but Lan fights off 3 of them and survives. Obviously, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review in case you didn't know that already. But there's 3 Fades, he's sliced multiple times, a lot of which should be fatal blows, and they're not. And then why do the Fades just stand there and wait until he gets back up and continues fighting? Why don't they just kill him like they would? It just, I don't know. That type of thing frustrates me. Lots of good visuals. I wrote that it definitely doesn't look like it's been interfered with nearly as much, meaning specifically interference due to lockdowns or restrictions or anything like that. For season 2 of a established generic fantasy TV show, it was like a 5.5, maybe a 6 for me. It wasn't the worst thing I'd ever watched and the best thing I'd ever watched. Definitely an improvement on season 1, but not by a whole ton. And then as a Wheel of Time adaptation, it was like a 3 of 5. Obviously, when I'm talking about adaptations, I understand that a book or that a show cannot be exactly like the books are. I understand that. I'm an actor. I know I pay attention when I watch an adaptation to see how things are changed, what things work, what things don't, and why. And it's kind of important to me. And as such, I can see this, look at this show and see this as a show is not the worst thing ever. But as an adaptation of Wheel of Time, it's still falling far short. Then we get into episode 2. There's a lot of things, some that seem to come or that are taken very directly from the books, some that are not. One of the things in episode that comes out in episode 2 and then starts coming out more in, I think it actually starts in episode 1, I can't remember. It's been several months now since I watched episode 1, but since I watched the early episodes. But the whole thing with Rand in the mental asylum, I thought that was an interesting way of telling stories. There's some things in that I actually like. One of the things specifically being that Rand is taught the forms by one of the guys that's just in the asylum. And the reason why I like that is because to me, whenever I was reading about the forms, they always sounded, the names that were given to him always sounded to me like something that a farmer would have come up with as he was required to go to battle. And so he came up with these ways of remembering remembering these forms that he's been taught, but not things that would be normally taught as like an official way of fighting or anything like that. And so seeing this older guy just telling this seemingly crazy older guy telling these stories about when he was young and how he was such a great fighter and these were the moves that he was doing, it sounded very much like I made up these names because I don't know what they're officially called and I can't remember them anyways, and so I'm just going to make some stuff up. And to me that works a lot better than them being official names of fighting styles or specific moves or anything like that. And so for that reason I like that. They kind of did away with that towards the end of the season, but that's all right. I do like Matt. I do like the new actor for Matt. I think he does a really good job, and I also think that he was underutilized. And unfortunately, I think that his storyline was not written the greatest. There's a ton of exposition in this series, dialogue exposition, where they're just sitting there explaining things because they have to, largely due to the fact that they didn't do the things in the show like they were done in the books, in which case you wouldn't need the exposition, at least the dialogue exposition, because it would be told to you straight out, or you'd see it as it'd be exposition through action rather than through dialogue. There's also a whole bunch of little things that I didn't like. The speed with which people traveled didn't make sense. I understand that there was time that had passed between season 1 episode 8 and season 2 episode 1, and so time for people to get moving and stuff like that. I understand that. They did a really bad job at explaining where the characters were in location and stuff like that. There's also some things, and I don't really want to mention it, but it's kind of important because Varen says something about clipping the dragon's wings. Why do they believe that that dragons have wings? They don't even know what a dragon is. The dragon is not a monster. It is the person, and that's always what it's been. So there's some things like that I just didn't love. I'm still not loving Min. I don't care for the way that she's introduced. I don't care for it. It felt very shoehorned in. There's just a lot of stuff with Min that I'm not liking. We do get to learn more about Lan and Moraine, and I like their history. I like the way that they see each other. Unfortunately, that rapidly changes after episode 2, but that's okay. It starts out strong. And we also get a lot, we see very strongly how, I guess I should say it this way, the way that the Aes Sedai and the White Tower are portrayed is very cult-like. And that's a very interesting way to portray it, and I actually think it's accurate, and it makes you understand the White Cloaks a bit more when they're talking about Tar Valon witches and stuff like that. So I don't mind that at all. It also only apparently takes 8 Aes Sedai to cut someone off in the show, which is definitely a change from the books as well. And this is episode 2, and I've already written Moraine sucks. They're messing up stuff with Loyal. They don't explain how the Shan-Chan get to where they're at, and it seems very obvious to me as a viewer that they're well inland from anything, and I don't like that at all. Again, as an episode of a TV show, 5.5 or 6, it's not horrible. It's not the worst I've ever seen by any means, and it's definitely not the best. As a WoT adaptation, I give this one about a 4, which is a little bit better. So that's good. So episode 3 is the episode where Nynaeve goes into the arches, and there's a lot in there that I like. There's some fake outs that they almost convinced me with, and I was sitting there questioning, and then I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, now I understand. And so there was for sure some things that I appreciated about that episode. I thought there was a lot of well done stuff in that episode. We then find out that the Shinarans are at Toman Head, and I don't love that. That makes no sense with where they're supposed to be and timelines and everything like that, but whatever. I don't think that I was not impressed with the performances of any of the Shan-Chan, to be honest. Let's see what else is important here. There's just some little things like the Shan-Chan lady taking off her helmet for no reason at all, other than to have her face be shown so that she can get paid more. That's really all that did. Again, I don't, the stuff with Rand in the mental asylum, I really like. The stuff with Logain is fantastic. And I see what people are saying now that I've read more of the books. I see why people are saying Logain and Mazrim Taim. It seems like they've combined those two characters, and it definitely does, but that does not mean that I think it's a bad performance. I think the actor for Logain is fantastic. He's just doing a really good job. We also see a much better adaptation of the Gleeman cloak than we did in season 1. We also get some breaking of lore here again. Rand with his jacket, his red jacket, is nice to see. That's a clear reference to the books. I do like that. They didn't do as much with the Game of Houses as I would have liked them to, but they did do a little bit, and that was nice to see. There's some weird stuff with Ishamael going on. I really like some of his stuff, and I really question why he does some of the other stuff. Why he says certain things, but it's whatever. I don't like that Min. I don't like Min. I don't like Min's storyline in this episode or in this season at all. And then again, we get into an issue we've seen several times in the show already, and that's when men can see women channeling and women can see men channeling, or women can see women channeling when they shouldn't be able to, and that sort of thing. And there's definitely some breaking of the lore, or rather there's no explanation of anything at all, and I don't love that. I made this, I said this several times because it's kind of true, and it's unfortunate, but in the books I really can't stand Nynaeve, especially in book 4. Like, she's just the worst. But I don't care for her in the show either. I think the actress is doing a fine job with what she's given, but I don't care for the character. And so I just wrote, I wouldn't be opposed to Nynaeve dying in the Arches. I really wouldn't. It wouldn't have, I mean, obviously, yeah, that's a drastic change from the books, and I want the books, or the show, to be as faithful an adaptation as they can be, and that would not be that. Still, I like some aspects of Elaine and her actress, and I feel like she doesn't do serious Elaine very well, or at least not in the early episodes. Once again, just wanted to mention that Donald Flynn is fantastic. He's doing a great job. It's an episode of a fantasy TV show, again, 5.5, 6, maybe a 6.5 for this one. But as a Watt adaptation, this is about a 4. So we're slowly getting a little bit better, a little bit more faithful in some ways to the source material. At least we're seeing how the source material is being adapted and why they made the decisions that they made. Getting into episode 4, there's again some good stuff with Egwene and Nynaeve, but there's also some, again, breaking of the lore that's not been established in the show, and so it's not technically breaking lore in the show, but it is, and I don't like that at all. Leandrin is great still. We're slowly making our way to Falm. Falm, as it's pronounced in the show, Falma in everything else, but we'll call it Falm because that's now what's stuck in my head. Slowly working our way to Falm. Every aspect of the show needs to be moving a little bit faster than it is. Again, we're still very exposition heavy, dialogue exposition heavy. They also confirmed that Elias was nearby Perrin in season 1, and by doing that, they should have just introduced him in season 1. It would have been so much better. Also, there was a perfect opportunity to set up portal stones, and they didn't do it. And I don't like that at all, because I don't know how important portal stones are to later books in the series, but if they wanted to introduce them, there was a perfect opportunity to do it. Okay, so this is the one where we find out that it's the Quindiar seals that are holding, not in the books, they're the seals for the Dark Lord's prison, for the Dark One's prison, but in the show they're the seals of the Forsaken, and I don't hate that change. I don't hate the change. I like that there's a use, or there's a reason why there's a reason why they're big, and there's a reason why they are the way that they are, and there's an actual use for them beyond just sitting there, presumably concealing the Dark One, or keeping the Dark One's prison sealed. And so I don't hate that change, but now I am very curious as to what's keeping the Dark One contained. Because if it's not these seals, then what is it? So that's something that I noted. Again, here we've got a little bit higher of a rating. This is a 6.5 probably. Unfortunately, as an adaptation of Wheel of Time, it's might near unrecognizable. Basically nothing in that episode was Wheel of Time from the books. There was nothing at all, and that's unfortunate. So I put it as a 2, but that it probably should be lower than that, probably. Getting into episode 5, I don't like how the Shan-Chan are being adapted. I don't feel like they look like what they're supposed to, as in they don't look nearly as bug-like as I was expecting and as I was hoping and as what I was wanting them to. And there's some really weird stuff with fingernails going on that would just they would not work. And so there's that as well. Oh, this is a good opportunity to bring this up. The White Cloaks armor and their costuming, I liked it in season 1. I like it even more in season 2. It looks very warrior-like, but very much like the warrior priest type character, where they're children of the light. They are, obviously, it's not what is described in the books, but I like the adaptation because I think that it fits the characters and it fits the world in a way that the description in the books didn't. And so I do really like the White Cloaks costuming in this season. I made note of this because I saw it and I was like, oh! And then I was watching the discussions that Fantasy Awash and Christopher Novel were having, and Fantasy Awash said the same thing, and that is Cho Chang. And so it's also, she's still a Ravenclaw apparently, and that was cool to see. Aiel, I like the way that the Aiel was done. I don't like that it's Avienda because that changes a lot from the books. The books are very focused on the relationship between, and I can't think of what the guy's name is, the male Aiel that's friends with Perrin. So that relationship between them, as well as Bane and Chiad. Not having those characters be with Perrin, I feel like is going to hurt the show going forward. But I do like how they were adapted, and I feel, again, that the Aiel are as powerful as they're supposed to be. We get some more depth for Leandrin. That's about it for this one. Episode of a fantasy TV show. This is, again, like a 6.5. It's a solid. There's definitely some improvement in this season. The other, as a Watt adaptation, this is my highest so far, and that's a 5. I think that it was a decent adaptation of a Wheel of Time show. It wasn't great, but it's starting to get better. Episode 6, I have very, very few notes on episode 6. Other than that, I really liked Rand and Matt's reunion. It was great to see. I think that they both did a really good job playing those two characters who are coming back together. Both of them, I really like the actor who's playing Rand, and I really like the actor who's playing Matt. So I'm happy with both of that. The other thing that was in episode 6 was it was very, very brutal with Egwene, and that was appropriate. And I didn't enjoy seeing it, but I appreciated seeing it because that's what it needed to be. As an episode of a fantasy TV show, I put this one at an 8, which is fairly high. I thought this was engaging. That's usually what you'll notice is if there's not very many notes, that means I enjoyed the episode a lot. Not always. Episode 7 will kind of flip that a bit. But Rand and Matt reunion, I thought was really good. And then the brutality with this stuff with Egwene, I thought was really good. As an episode of fantasy TV show, solid 8 again. As a Watt adaptation, Wheel of Time adaptation, I put a 6. So that's a fairly high so far. I thought that was good. Episode 7, I initially wrote down no thoughts. I couldn't keep my attention through the tiredness, so I shut it off and came back to it later. I was very, very tired that night. I'd just gotten back from a trip, and so it was the Friday night. We got back on Friday afternoon, and I started watching this on Friday night after I'd watched the last episode of Ahsoka. And Ahsoka, I was disappointed with Ahsoka, we'll put it that way. But then this was, I couldn't get into this episode, into episode 7 of Wheel of Time. I don't love the whole Matt T thing, and I think I'll talk more about that in my thoughts on episode 8 a little bit. And that was all the thoughts that I wrote down regarding episode 7, because I was just not into it. I was very tired and I couldn't get invested in the episode. As an episode of a fantasy TV show, I don't know why I put it this high, but that's what I did. I put it as an 8. I think it's probably lower than that. Probably a 6.5 is closer. And then I also, as a Watt adaptation, as a Wheel of Time adaptation, I put it as a 5, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. There's some stuff that's pretty accurate to the books, and there's definitely a lot of just made up stuff or things that are a whatever for the show, and it's what it is. All right, getting into episode 8 now. What do I actually want to talk about? Okay, so here's some stuff that I want to talk about. I mentioned it in the last episode that I don't care for the Matt T thing and how all that was working. I'll get more into that here. Basically, Matt's whole storyline in this episode I don't love, because it removes a major, maybe it doesn't completely remove it, but it seems to remove a major important sequence from book 4, I believe it is. Book 4, yeah. And it basically skips 6 books worth of character development for Matt in some ways, and I don't like that at all. So basically what I'm talking about there is Matt drinks the tea, and then he's able to, he sees all his past lives, he learns all about himself, he starts to remember, he can now speak the old tongue, is that what it's called? I don't remember. And he then, for some reason they give him the spear, or the dagger back, and he turns the dagger into his spear, so now we've skipped his major important sequence from book 4, and now he has the spear, and there's a lot there that just got skipped, and maybe it didn't, maybe they'll bring it back up later, but I feel like they won't, and I don't love that. It felt a little bit like, oh, Matt's supposed to have a spear, let's find a way to give him a spear. But along with that, the way that spear was built, well, it wasn't, first off, it's not a spear. It would not work as a spear. And also the little piece of, the little strap that he put around it would not hold the dagger onto the chunk of wood in the way that he is wanting it to. It would not work that way. It wouldn't. That's unfortunate, but it's the truth. It might hold for a little bit, but it would not hold for as much as he was using it for. I also don't like the Rand's storyline, the conclusion to Rand's storyline in this episode. I thought that it was very weak. Basically, he did nothing again. And I hate that. I hate that they are making the Dragon Reborn, who is the most powerful character, be absolutely worthless. He can't do anything. And I understand there's some reasons to that. I get there's some stuff that goes on with that. Even in the books, there's some reasons why he is not as powerful as he should or could be. But we skip his character development by making him channel and then kill everybody, and including Turak without the sword fight. We lost a lot of character development there, but they make up for it by making sure that he gets branded by the Heron marked blade. Except that that's not how. I had so many issues with that sequence, because you would not hold a sword blade there. They were clearly only doing it because that's where the Heron mark was, and so they had to make sure that he was branded. And just, I don't like that. And I'm pretty sure that was his second brand, not his first. I don't know that for certain, but I think that was, in the books, that was when he got his second brand. So how is he going to get his other second brand? I don't know. I genuinely have no idea, but that's apparently not important to this story, because the only prophecy is that he's going to declare himself over Falme in blaze of fire or something like that. Again, I don't like that he didn't then have a battle over Falm with the Forsaken. He walked up to the Forsaken and poked him in the chest with his knife, with his dagger, with his sword, I guess is what it was. And I don't like that. I need to see if they already removed his major powerful scene where he goes and destroys all of the Trollocs in season 1. They completely removed that sequence. They have now removed his massive fight with the Forsaken over Falm, and that's an important scene to understanding his character as well, understanding his fight. They'd better not remove the one that is supposed to take place in the Stone of Tyr, because if they do, that's also going to lead to some issues, but who knows if they're even going to include the Stone of Tyr now. I just don't know, because so that leads to another point. The Aiel they don't care about this Dragon Reborn. They don't care about it. That's not part of their prophecy. The prophecy of the Kara Karn is that I forget everything that it is about him, but he's the Chief of Chiefs, and what proves that to them is not if I'm remembering correctly, it is the fall of the Stone of Tyr, and that is not Falm. And so for them to suddenly look up and see a giant flaming dragon, which also doesn't have wings if you remember back to my previous comment, but so the dragon, fire dragon that Moraine makes, that looks horrible, looks very CGI, I don't for an instant believe that it's real. It doesn't look like something conjured, it's just stupid. I didn't like that. I didn't like the dragon. I didn't like how he was proclaimed, because he was not the one proclaiming himself, even in the fact that he was not the one fighting. He did nothing. He didn't do anything, any burst of brightness or color or light or anything that could be interpreted as him declaring himself. And so I just don't appreciate what they did there. So basically, Matt's storyline was rushed. They skipped a whole bunch of character development. Rand's storyline was completely underdeveloped, and they made no sense for his character. And then we get to Perrin. Perrin's storyline, oh boy. Perrin's storyline was convenience for the sake of it was not convenient. It was action for the sake of needing to further his storyline. And I don't like that. He runs off from the battle just so that he can... There's no good reason why he ran off from the battle. The reason why they had him do it was so that they could get him in the place so that Valda could see him and attack him, and then Hopper could come in and attack Valda so that Hopper could die, so that then Perrin could kill Bornhald, so that then Dane Bornhald could see Perrin killing his dad, so that we could then get the season 3 storyline where Perrin has to return to the Two Rivers because the White Cloaks are now attacking the Two Rivers. It was literally just done because they needed it. They needed some way to get that storyline moving, whereas there was other ways that they could have done it. It did not need to. It did not need to be that by any means, and that just frustrated me because that's not how you tell a good story. Again, Nynaeve's supposed to be a healer. She's supposed to be a wisdom, and I feel like she does not know anything about healing. I know nothing about healing, and I know that she did some things incorrectly in that sequence, and I'll just leave it at that. Elaine is whatever. I don't love the Rand looking up and seeing Elaine healing him and being, "Who are you?" and then her saying, "I'm Elaine," and all that. I don't love that. I wish they would have introduced her in season 1 where she was supposed to be introduced, even though they skipped that and changed that as well. And then we get to Egwene, and Egwene's storyline I do not feel was a satisfactory conclusion. Once again, it's basically, I wasn't satisfied with it. That's not true. I liked the conclusion to Moraine's storyline and Lan's storyline. So at least we got those two reconciled and that issue dealt with. That was nice to see, and Lan once again proving that he's awesome. And Lan is just one of those characters that I can't help but like. And I think that Daniel Henney's doing a great job portraying Lan, and I think that he's a really good choice for Lan. I've kind of just been skipping around. Egwene. I don't like Egwene's storyline because Egwene and this is both episode 8, but also kind of season as a whole. Egwene's storyline, it feels, especially the stuff with Rinna, it doesn't feel earned. Yes, Egwene was fighting it from the beginning, and that's all fine, that's all good, but the way that the catapult saved her and killed everybody else except conveniently her and Rinna, I was not too happy with any of that sequence. The whole collars and then maybe in the books they did color each other. I can't remember. It's been a while. It's been over a year since I read that book, since I read The Great Hunt. So I have no idea what happened with that or how that worked anymore, but I just did not love that, the way that storyline concluded. I feel like it was, conveniently Egwene and Rinna are the only two left alive. It just convenient timing, convenient that they were the only people not to get killed. It just, and then their storyline, convenient that they were the only people there that could stand there, and then Egwene could deal with Rinna in a way that I don't feel is accurate to Egwene's character in the show. I don't feel like it's accurate to her character in the show. I don't also feel like it's accurate to the character in the books, but for what has been set up, I don't feel like it should have ended that way. Just artificially forcing Perrin's arc. I'm glad that Matt did blow the horn, but it wasn't good. As also the dagger, definitely just completely rewriting the fact that Loyal was stabbed by the dagger in season 1. Oh, that was the other thing. Okay, and this is one that frustrates. There is no way that with the angle that Matt was standing in relation to Ishii and Rand, there's no way that he would have hit Rand throwing the spear. They literally just did that because they had to get that wound into Rand, and so that then they could fulfill that piece of the character arc, I guess, of Matt's. And I just, that type of thing bothers me so much when there's no reason why things should happen the way that they do. Matt didn't miss. If they wanted to explain it as Matt threw the spear and then Ishii redirected it, okay, that's fine. I could get behind that. But that's not what they said. That's not what they did at all. So I don't... what else is there that I need to mention? That's really it. We need to see Rand declare himself overfallen in a blaze of glory. We need to see the dragon reborn. That was before we saw the dragon, Moiraine build a dragon out of fire and then fly it up there. But still, I needed to see Rand actually doing something. And again, just the Kara Karn thing, I did not like that at all. So that's kind of my episode by episode. Overall, the season, it's definitely a step in the right direction. Those first 6 episodes were definitely improving upon themselves and improving upon what was built in season 1. And 7 and 8 were a little bit more of a letdown in many ways. I guess my rating for episode 8 would be probably a 7. An episode of a fantasy TV show, probably a 7. Or maybe an 8. Probably not, probably a 7. Watt adaptation, Wheel of Time adaptation, maybe a 6, 5.5 probably. As a whole, the season, I'd give it 7.5, I think, maybe an 8. As a whole, as a fantasy TV show, as a Wheel of Time adaptation, maybe a 4.5. I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. It's not perfect. It's not great even. It's not even barely good, but at least it is moving in the right direction, and I can see why they're making some of the decisions that they're making. I would just like them to make a few more and be a little bit more, try and stick closer to the books, because in general, so here's my issue. I don't love the books, but at least the books have a reason for being the way they are. The show is not as good as the books, and I don't like the books. So if the show's not as good as the books, there's an issue. Because I can also read the books and know that this would make a fantastic fantasy TV show. You could adapt it obviously there'd be some changes for a different medium, that's understandable. But you could adapt the show very faithfully, very good, maintaining the audience from the books, fixing a lot of the issues I have with the books, and then also drawing in a whole other audience. There's ways to do that the show is not capitalizing on. I don't think the show is horrible. I think that season 2 was a drastic improvement. It's still not enough. They need to do a lot more if they want this show to be great, if they want it to be in the Hall of Fame of fantasy TV shows. It's not there. They need to do some serious improvement if they want it to get there. But we're moving in the right direction. Season 2 was a step in the right direction for sure. There's actually some interesting things going on with this season that I enjoyed, and I'm enjoying the performances more and more, and I'm enjoying the costuming. I think that they've finally gotten a handle on how to make the costumes not look artificially dirtied. That the costumes are starting to look good. They're starting to look lived in. We're starting to understand the world. We saw a whole bunch of different stuff. I didn't love everything that I saw in the when Matt blew the horn and the hunters, or the Knights of the Horn. Is that what it is? I don't remember. But the Knights of the Horn, there was some really cool stuff with that visually as well. Also seeing the way that the various different cultures and clothing styles and ages and so much of stuff was going on there that I really enjoyed seeing. I really appreciated seeing. So there was some good stuff for sure. Also, I understand a little bit more about, I don't know if this is how it is in the books, but it really seems like the Forsaken were not chosen until the end of the Age of Legends and until the end of the last age, before the breaking of the world. And that these people who were, maybe they were always Dark Friends, or they've been Dark Friends for ages and many turnings of the wheel or something like that. But it really seems like, to me, and this is the most I've ever understood about the Forsaken and how they work, was that they were just people. They were the most powerful of the Aes Sedai during the Age of Legends, and they specifically mention how Ishamael and Lanfear were super close with Luz Theron. And so seeing that in the way that they described it in the show, whether or not that's what it is in the books, I really like that, and I like it. It gives me an understanding that I have not had of the Forsaken ever before, and I appreciate that, and it really helps me to understand some things. But I still don't know how they all tie in with the Dark One and everything like that. That's okay. That hopefully can be explained later. I don't know how the books end, so I don't know where all this is going to, leading towards, anything like that. But it's an improvement. We're definitely seeing some improvement with the show. I don't love the show, but it's better than it was, and I just ask that they continue making it better than it was. And I would also like to ask that they would try and stay a little bit more faithful to the books if they can, anywhere that they can. I tend to like my adaptations more faithful than not, but as long as they're telling a good story and telling it well, then I really don't mind. I really don't mind if they make changes to the source material. That's fine. Changes from the source material, I should say. So anyways, I think I rambled long enough here. Overall, as a fantasy TV show, maybe a 7.5 as a adaptation of Wheel of Time, maybe a 4.5. So it's improving. It's not perfect. It's not there yet, but it's getting better, and that's really all that I can ask for from this show, especially with as rough of a first season as they had. So thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and at the moment also Saturdays. And then anytime we have adaptation stuff, I'll post it on Wednesdays. So that's what our schedule looks like at the moment. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.